Hey everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. It is January 6th. I think this is the first time I'm talking to you in the new year, so happy new year to you. And there's obviously been a lot that's gone on. I was on vacation, so we are back. We have a new mayor, right? Mayor Zoran Mamdani has now officially been sworn in and has taken a bunch of executive orders and steps to attain what he is calling his three-step agenda, right? Universal childcare, free buses, affordable housing. So we'll kind of talk about that. We have a lot of stories that we've done this past week with our Henry Rossoff on pix11.com as well. And as we are now looking into this new year, we're going to jump right back into a lot of the races that we are focused on. I don't know if you saw the morning show this morning, but I spoke to Congressman Dan Goldman, who is now fighting to keep his seat in Congress against the former New York City Comptroller, Brad Lander, former mayoral candidate, Brad Lander, who announced he is now running for that seat. We had Brad Lander on the show right before Christmas, the day that he announced, talking about how somebody like Dan Goldman was uber wealthy, purchased his seat in Congress, doesn't believe he's the fighter that the city needs right now for the affordability agenda that Zoran Mamdani is so much fighting for. Dan Goldman coming back on the morning show this morning saying, well, I've been doing it for the last 4 years. Let me keep doing it. To be continued on that front, but there are so many races, right? We're talking about so many seats in Congress, right? That one that we're just talking about. Then you have a very crowded New York 12 race. We're talking about New York 17, Mike Lawler, whether or not he'll keep his seat. And then we're going to get a little more granular with some of the city council seats as well. So Eric Bottcher, who was right here on this very show, he came on to talk about how he was running for Congress. That then changed, right? Now he's running for a state seat instead. He has switched from Congress, that very crowded field, to state. So his seat in the city council will soon be up for grabs. You may remember the name, Lindsey Boylan, all right? So she is a former aide to Governor Andrew Cuomo. She was the first woman out of 11 to come forward with sexual assault allegations against Mr. Cuomo, which, by the way, he has repeatedly denied. He did so during the campaign as well. That's a story for a different day. But Lindsey Boylan is the person that we are talking to this morning. She once ran for Manhattan Borough President, and now she is running for city council. Good to see you, Lindsey.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
So let me ask you first and foremost why you feel this right now is the moment to jump into a race.
This couldn't be a more exciting time, and it couldn't be a more exciting place. District 3 is the heart and history of the modern LGBTQIA plus rights movement. It's the heart of so many of our iconic places in the city. It's Broadway. Mm-hmm. It has some of our wealthiest people. It has some of our people who are struggling the most. And Zoran won with a huge mandate. Our mayor won with a huge mandate for a more progressive future in the city. And we need city council members to deliver on that. And the fight to get this outcome in the election was one that I participated in wholeheartedly for a number of reasons. And we really need good partners to get fast and free buses, to get universal childcare, to get the affordable housing that we need. And my district is front and center, the microcosm of what we see across the city and frankly across the country. And I've lived there for the better part of 2 decades. I can't think of a better way to thank the district that has sustained me, has raised me. It's where I'm raising my daughter. It's incredible.
Why this moment? Was it because Zoran Mamdani won and you aligned with so much of what he's fighting for that you said, let me run for this seat in particular? I
mean, you can't discount our new mayor. What I would say is the New Yorkers are the one who chose him. Mm-hmm. So it is really not only that we have a new mayor that is ready to tackle affordability, but we have New Yorkers saying this is priority one. We need to deal with this. And so that is exciting. I can't imagine a better time. Having been, in the senior-most halls of power, some of it was great, the substantive work I got to do. The other half of it was terrible that I've talked about, and people know my name in part because the politics of New York, and even New York City by extension, has not been necessarily a welcoming, open place to make change. I've always been a fighter, and this is the right time to be a fighter for change in the city. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, a lot can be said about what can be done on the granular level within the city council, right? They have a lot of power.
Yes.
And so how do you kind of view the city council right now? There were a lot of new folks who just became city council members. There was just a speaker's race where Julie Menon is now taking over the reins, right? Do you feel like that is something you want to be part of, you can work with?
Yeah. I mean, so what folks probably don't know, or maybe don't entirely know is that my background is in urban planning. So I spent the better part of a decade managing public parks in the city, including Bryant Park, Harold and Greeley Squares, tree pits, all of the meat and potatoes of the lives that people experience in the city and what makes it great, what makes it good, what makes it safe, what makes it happy for our kids and families. And that is really the work of city council. When I worked at state, I oversaw all of the housing budgetary things, getting hundreds of millions of dollars for underfunded NYCHA in spite of our federal government. This is the time, and city council is the place to be delivering on that. We have to deal with funding and not simply just privatizing all of NYCHA. We have to deal with our transportation issues, disability aspects to accessing all the infrastructure we have in the city. Taxing the rich is going to be a part of making that possible, which I am on board with, which goes back to my point about Mayor Mamdani.
So let's stop there for a second,
Yes.
right? Because taxing the rich is something that is a big
state
talker
issue.
right now. It's a state
Yes.
issue, but I understand it's a state issue, but it is something that city council says that they can push for to get the state on board, right?
Sure.
Right now, the governor doesn't seem like she's fully on board with taxing the 1%. Corporate tax rate is something she may or may not be on board with. So how do you, as a council candidate and maybe a council member, kind of urge Albany to say, take a look at this?
Sure. Well, I would say a few things, and it probably won't be new to you. Massachusetts did a similar personal income tax, and they raised it more significantly, so more aggressively.
Yeah.
People didn't move. And I think what we saw, there was a lot of fear from certain aspects of a lot of wealthy New Yorkers said nothing about leaving if Mamdani was elected, and they voted for him. But there were a few who said that, and that has not happened. That has not come to fruition. People are not leaving, and I know that's a concern of the governor. So I don't think I don't think the evidence bears out that it's affecting people's moving, with their feet, so to speak.
Yeah.
Our corporate tax rate would purely be matched to New Jersey's. I was most recently working for the state, the jobs and economic development person. So presumably I was the expert talking about what makes a functioning economy and what brings jobs here. And this is a part of it in a world that is increasingly driven by a very small number of powerful, enormously wealthy people, to the extent that we can't even really fathom. This is just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And while I will be in city council, and to our shared point, that is an Albany fight.
Yeah.
I think it serves that I spent years in Albany, ran the budget process for both housing issues and economic development and other things. And I think, listen, the mayor and New Yorkers have a huge bully pulpit because of the popularity, because of the excitement around this change. I think that's going to be a huge force for good and change and getting all the things we want. Fast and free buses, universal childcare. And even the incoming speaker has said, in many ways trying to come together with the mayor, universal childcare is something she wants to act on. All of these things beg the question, when are we going to tax the rich? And I think it's just something that we need to do, and we'll keep fighting for.
What do you say to folks right now who may be looking at you, and I understand people change,
Yeah, of course.
right? But you were part of an administration that wasn't so progressive.
Yeah, sure.
And so how do you tackle that? Because you might get that along the campaign saying, well, you were part of this establishment,
Sure.
and now you're saying you're progressive. So where did the change come?
Sure. Well, I think, the best way to prove that to people is by showing them, not telling them. And the last few years, I think it would be hard to have watched my last 5 years and think I was going to toe the line for the establishment. I think for a long time, my whole life, I wanted to be in government because I thought it would help people. My mom had my sister at 16. I do not come from, particularly advantaged. I know everyone has privilege, including myself, but I viewed government as a way to make things right that went wrong. And for a long time, I viewed supporting a powerful principle and getting liberal things, policies enacted as the way to fight back. What I experienced deeply in a personal way and through my job was that you cannot abuse your power and abuse people in that process and think the outcomes are going to be anything close to acceptable. And that was poignant for me. A turning
point.
Yeah, a real turning point. And I think, the public has had a front row seat to that with me. And in an odd way, people say, what was the last year like for you? It started off as, again, I have had a few worst years ever in the last few years because of this journey. And I was worried that he was going to be our mayor because not enough really powerful people were speaking up. But then this amazing thing happened. New Yorkers from across the divide, New Yorkers from across every part of the city came together, even candidates in the primary, and Zoran, our new mayor, really performed. And I played my piece in that, trying to fight and remind everyone that abuse of women is abuse of power, and abuse of power is bad leadership and bad outcomes. And so what started as this terrible experience became incredibly meaningful. And I think I don't think I would be sitting here with you talking about running again, getting back into this process, had I not gone through that journey. So I think that's also part of the answer to the question you asked before. So it's been life-changing in some respects.
And I don't want to make it about Andrew Cuomo, but you're bringing up the election in this past year where he a number of times said he was questioned about sexual assault allegations, saying it never happened. The investigations didn't come to fruition.
True.
And you had to hear that repeatedly. So I don't want to go back and dig that up. But you heard repeatedly that you were maybe called a liar.
Yeah.
And now you're running for a campaign where you may face some of those accusations again. How do you anticipate that going into a campaign?
Well, one thing I'd say is if you decide to get in the ring of politics, you have to accept that you're going to get some mean-spirited smears and the like. And I've certainly had my fair share. I think any survivor knows when they've spoken up that you're going to encounter this. My hope is that in a way in this race, I can do my small piece to change the narrative around speaking out and being a whistleblower and a survivor and what it means for your future after you do. That's an aside. And listen, I thought we all heard that Andrew Cuomo was going to move to Florida. But if he's not, and he decides to take an active voice in this race, I hope he's moving to this district then, and it will be my job without fear or favor to serve him, hopefully when I win. And I mean that truly. I can't be responsible for his smears and, his excessive free time to be mean-spirited, but I will absolutely be responsible for delivering for him and his family like any other member of my community if he ends up living there.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
Basically saying that you will be representative for folks who didn't vote for you and have voted for you.
That is the only way.
Yeah. If you were to win, right, what would you say for that district is maybe the number one issue?
I think housing is the top issue for everyone in some way, shape, or form. Even people who have viewed themselves as middle class are struggling in this city, and especially in my district. The real estate, per square foot value continues to go up. We are contributing, particularly in certain parts of the district, increasingly to providing more affordable housing. I think it's one of the top 4. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. There are a lot of issues with NYCHA and how these processes have really made people feel betrayed. I think there's a lot of work to be done, both on just the housing issue, affordable housing, deeply affordable. I'm always going to want to talk, in addition to that, about issues like universal childcare. You don't have to have a kid for that to benefit all of New York.
Can I ask you a question about the housing first?
Sure.
Only because it's been such an issue for so long. And so what can make you get through to a New Yorker that you could actually make change? Everybody's heard about affordable housing. And it's like, well, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think when you have a mayor who makes that his number one issue, and he puts, 2 of his recent appointments, I know personally, his head of HPD, Dana Levy, I worked with to a certain extent at state. She's incredible. She's really on the side of folks, I think. She's brilliant. That's a serious appointment. I think Sia Weaver, who has led Housing Justice for All, is really focused on, pushing particularly for, in the future, alternatives to RAD and, purely privatizing future for development and public housing and looking at housing trust models. Those are really good signs that he made this a main issue. I think you have everyone from the incoming controller, Mark Levine, talking about how we do more financing for housing, which is a huge issue here. You have the housing ballot measures that pass that, the whole hope there is that it speeds up affordable housing. Those are all good things. And then you have New Yorkers who clearly gave a mandate to this mayor to do that. So between all of these appointments, between these changes to the ballot measures that I think are a good signal.
You don't think it took away power from the council?
I'll say this. I don't think it will take any power away from me to advocate for my community. if and when I get elected,
Yeah.
because my job will be to figure out how to make sure we get good affordable housing that actually benefits
Yeah.
our community. So I'm not worried about that. I am excited about the prospect of shortening, in a broad sense, the timeline and fast tracking affordable housing and deeply affordable housing and supportive housing. And I think this is the best chance we got. And in a way, part of why I want to do this is because with the experience I had at state, which we've talked about, was different than this.
Yeah.
And my very clear progressive agenda aligned with the mayor, having worked with him and his team to a certain extent as a candidate, supporting them. There couldn't be a better time to try and make this happen. And I think he's also put other appointments that make it very serious too. Dean Fulihan, as you probably know from your work, has a huge history in Albany. And I think that will figure prominently in fights like Tax the Rich and the tax issue. And all of the ingredients are there for us to actually accomplish something for New Yorkers. And we need to. And that's why I want to be part of it.
All right. Lindsey Boylan, not officially a candidate yet because you have to wait for...
We can say I'm official because I'm doing it, but there is some procedural
things along the way. Right. All right. Eric Botcher has to resign. Great to have you here. We'll talk to you along the campaign.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. And that'll do it for Picks and Politics. Hey, send me your questions. I'm sitting down with Governor Kathy Hochul this Thursday for an extensive interview that will air on Picks and Politics Friday. I want to hear from you on what you'd like us to ask. I've already got a few of your questions. I know congestion pricing, one of them, affordability, another one, including tax the rich, which Lindsey and I just talked about. We'll bring those directly to Governor Kathy Hochul. Continue to email me, Dan@pix11.com. I'll see you back here tomorrow.